the Russian-made billionaire Bedzina Ivanishvili is employing Russian tactics um, against his own people and also against the opposition. He has threatened to outlaw the democratic opposition altogether. However, we face not only losing the democratic opposition in Georgia, but losing our very statehood. So the stakes are very high at these elections.
Obviously, we are really interested in seeing what's going to happen in Georgia this weekend. We followed the Moldovan elections, and I wonder, just to put it very basically, how are you feeling ahead of the election this Saturday?
We're feeling very confident. All credible polls indicate that the opposition is ahead with a large margin of the Georgian Dream, the ruling party, that has derailed Georgia's European path, which is the primary reason why the Georgian people have turned against them. In 2 days, we have these historic elections where I believe Georgia will return onto its European integration path.
How confident can you be of that? Because Georgian Dream is in power at the moment. It has trod a path halfway between the EU and halfway between Russia. Do you think people believe that it will become a more pro-Kremlin country if Georgian Dream win?
There might have been question marks as to what the foreign policy orientation of this government was up until a few months ago, when the government adopted a Kremlin-inspired Russian-type agents law that aims to silence the opposition and dissent, critical voices, including civil society organizations and critical media. We have seen this law put into action with crackdowns on civil society, including home raids today against civil society leaders, as well as violent physical beatings of protesters as well as opposition leaders. For 3 years, the chair of my party, the founding chair of my party, third president of Georgia, Mikhail Saakashvili, has been imprisoned on trumped up political charges, which is one of many manifestations of Ivanishvili's anti-democratic moves, in which he uses state institutions against political opponents, which is certainly not in line with European values. And European leaders have also been crystal clear, as well as the EU ambassador in Tbilisi, who a couple of days ago said, with the given circumstances, Georgia cannot be a member of the EU today, tomorrow, or in 2030. Therefore, we need change of government in order to reclaim our European future.
Does what happened in Moldova, though, ring alarm bells for people voting in Georgia? Russia was accused, of course, of sending money and bribes as part of a disinformation campaign. In the end, the Moldovans voted very narrowly in favour of the pro-EU membership. But do you think that there could be a last-minute hitch to your hopes of winning this election?
Moldovan elections and the referendum on the EU proved that each and every vote counts. What saved Moldova's European prospect is the vote of the diaspora of Moldovans living abroad. We have unprecedented mobilization of Georgian citizens that are living abroad, unprecedented mobilization of the youth, which is also new. And I am confident that the margin with which the democratic European opposition will prevail on the 26th of October in these historic parliamentary elections will be far larger than what we saw in Moldova. Yes, Russian malign influence also is present here in Georgia. In fact, we have a number of individuals, including a former general prosecutor and a close ally of oligarch Ivanishvili, the Russian-made billionaire, who is the informal ruler here in Georgia now, who was sanctioned precisely for spreading malign Russian influence in Georgia and for his ties with Russian state security services. But nevertheless, Georgians have made up their mind. They have made their choice, and I am confident that that will be a European choice.
Do you think that there's a way of all the opposition parties in Georgia working together now? How closely are you working together?
Unity National Movement, which is the coalition that I represent, with its largest party, United National Movement, which I chair, was a strong proponent of a unified list on the front of the opposition. However, other parties were skeptical, and currently we have 4 large opposition coalitions that are competing in these elections. I believe that despite our past differences, after prevailing in the elections and after the Georgian people expressed their confidence towards us, the 4 opposition democratic pro-European opposition parties, we will rise above our differences and we will find common ground around the highest national interest of Georgia, which is our European agenda. I also believe that President Zurabishvili, who has pioneered an interesting and important Georgian charter, which in a way is a roadmap for Georgia's European integration, will also play an important role in the coalition formation process, which is certainly a novelty and a challenge for Georgia, but I'm confident that the Georgian opposition will rise to this challenge, and we will form a coalition government that would lead Georgia's way to Europe.
And of course, there is an existential challenge here because the Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister, has said that if Georgian Dream secured a constitutional majority as opposed to a parliamentary majority, then it would ban all pro-Western opposition groups. So your very survival as an opposition group could be threatened if Georgian Dream continues to hold power. Is that correct?
Absolutely. The Russian-made billionaire Bedzina Ivanishvili is employing Russian tactics against his own people and also against the opposition. He has threatened to outlaw the democratic opposition altogether. However, we face not only losing the democratic opposition in Georgia, but losing our very statehood. So the stakes are very high at these elections, and it is for the survival of not the opposition or for any political leader or political party that we're fighting for, but it is for the survival of our state and our European prospects, which is why I believe the Georgian people will unify and cast their votes in support of a European future. I am proud to represent the largest and the strongest pro-Western democratic coalition, Unity National Movement, and I look forward to a coalition government, again, which will be a novelty for Georgia, but a very important step towards consensus-based politics, towards depolarization, which is something that Ivanishvili has bred for years. Step away from hate-based politics that tries to foment false fears based on Russian propagandistic lines, and to lead Georgia forward towards eventual European Union membership.
And Tina Bokucheva, Georgia did obtain EU candidate status in December last year. If you win these elections, when do you think you might be able to get full EU membership, or is that a long way off?
I believe that very shortly after regime change here in Georgia, the coalition government will be able to open accession talks with Europe. And those are indications that we have received from Brussels. As we very well know, due to recent European Parliament elections, there is a new commission. And we have spoken to candidates for various commissioners. And they believe that the legacy of the new commission will certainly be focused on enlargement, which gives Georgia a historic window of opportunity to jump on the accession train. And of course, once the accession talks are open, it is up to us, up to the politicians to drive the European agenda, to implement reform in the judiciary, in election administration, to make sure that we no longer have a situation of state capture where Ivanishvili, a single oligarch, controls every branch of government, every level of the judiciary, from the constitutional court to city courts, which have cast political judgments, including against the current president on her impeachment, as well as the third president, Mikhail Saakashvili, who brought tremendous reforms to Georgia that turned Georgia into a laboratory of reform. Therefore, it is up to us. Again, I'm confident that the coalition government will respond to the public demands on European reforms, and we will successfully deliver on the European agenda, which will accelerate our European accessions process.